Atheists often have to defend themselves against theists who claim that atheism is just another religion, that atheists are just as guilty of having faith in the absence of God as theists are in having faith in the existence of God. We defend ourselves from this charge because it's simply not true. Atheists don't have belief or faith in the absence of a God. We merely have no faith whatsoever. We lack faith in a God. And the reason we lack faith is because theists have failed miserably to convince us that their God exists. In the following video series, I want to demonstrate why and how it is theists fail at convincing atheists that a God, specifically the Christian God, exists. And I'm going to do that by using the top 10 proofs for the existence of God as sold in CD format by radio evangelist and Christian apologist Bob Dutko. Dutko is described as a leading voice today in the fearless defense of Christian truth, using logic, reason, science, history, and factual evidence to disarm the critics and equip believers. Bob hosts the nationally syndicated talk show Defending the Truth with Bob Dutko, heard on radio stations nationwide. Bob begins his top 10 proofs for the existence of God by stating,
"The number one proof for God's existence is a scientific law called the first law of thermodynamics, which is this: it's a conservation of energy law. And this conservation of energy law basically says this: in the universe you have matter and energy. Matter and energy can be converted into each other. However, matter or energy cannot be created out of nothing. Also, matter and energy cannot be destroyed to where it ceases to exist. All it can do is take on different forms." With this being said, I want you to think about everything in the universe for a moment. We have matter and energy throughout the entire universe. If there is no God, scientifically, it is impossible that we would have this matter and energy, because somehow we would have had to go from nothing to something.
So basically, that's it. Bob's first proof for the existence of God is that God must exist in order for him to create matter and energy, which can neither be created or destroyed. But Bob, if matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed, doesn't it follow that in one form or another, matter and or energy are eternal and therefore does not require a creator? I'm going to stay away from schooling Dutko with the science related to the first law of thermodynamics and its so-called evidence for God. It's been done before, and it's been done better than what I could offer. I'd rather show the absurdity of making a claim, such as you can't create something from nothing, so let's postulate a super something to account for everything but explain nothing about this super something and how it could have created everything from nothing, which was just stated to have been impossible. Let me break that down a bit. Dutko is stating, quite emphatically, that the first law of thermodynamics, a law applicable to everything we know about the universe, supports the idea of a supernatural creator, specifically his biblical God, whose creative acts are documented in Genesis, the first book of the Christian and Jewish Bibles. The first law states, just as Dutko said, that energy can be transformed, changed from one form to another, but it cannot be created or destroyed. And since most scientists of the history of our universe agree that it did have a beginning, they call it the Big Bang, and that prior to this moment nothing existed, at least nothing in the sense that we understand the universe today, creationists like Dutko assert that there had to be something outside the universe which got the Big Bang to bang. That something, of course, is the Christian God. And there's your first, numero uno proof that God exists. Now, granted, the beginning of our universe is a mystery. Scientists have been quite busy working out the details of this major question, and they've come up with some remarkable answers which take us back to a fraction of 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 a fraction
of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction
of a second just after the moment of the initial Big Bang. But let's face it, there's still plenty of work to do to get us even further back than we've gotten to already. But let's just say that the exact moment of the creation of our universe forever remains a mystery. Does postulating another, even more complicated, complex, and untestable mystery really answer our questions? The exact creation of our universe isn't unknown at the moment. No one's really sure how it happened. But does substituting a God for our ignorance really satisfy the question? Specifically, if this God is separate from matter and energy, which is all the universe is anyway, and which itself is ultimately responsible for everything that is a cause or an effect, how then did this totally separate entity have any effect whatsoever on the material universe? You see, for one thing to affect another thing, like a billiard ball rolling into and knocking another billiard ball, or a mother giving birth to a child, or an artist creating a painting, the two things are of similar nature. They both consist of matter and energy. The billiard balls both have mass and energy, so that one can make a transfer to the other. This transfer is measurable and obeys certain known laws of the universe. How did this immaterial entity, then, affect the creation of a material universe? Dutko's Bible says it was done via speaking words. But we know that speaking words is also governed by laws in the universe, and indeed requires a physical universe. How then did this God create from nothing? The God did it answer does nothing to explain the mystery already before us. In fact, all it does is add another mystery, and that's going in the opposite direction of knowledge. So in the end, Dutko doesn't supply us with any sort of useful answer or add to our knowledge about the origin of the universe. All he does is deepen the mystery and invite you to wash your brain of all those inquisitive questions and just believe. Well, thank you very much, but I don't just believe, and neither should you. Before I close part 1, however, I just wanted to note something else Dutko says in his presentation. I actually run into a similar statement made by apologists when they try to debate atheists and skeptics. They like to insult us, but don't really realize they're doing nothing but embarrassing themselves. Listen to this.
And if you think about it, really a 5-year-old child could out-debate a PhD scientist who's an atheist by merely asking them this simple question: where did all the stuff come from?
Now, what Dutko is trying to say is that his proof for God is just self-evident. It's so easy a child could understand it. But remember what I said in my Assumptions of Science video? Science doesn't believe anything is self-evident. Everything requires evidence and sound reasoning, which is why Dutko's so-called proof fails. He's saying that apologists reason like a 5-year-old. They simply look at the world and whatever seems self-evident to them must be true. They don't do the hard scientific work like a PhD. What goes bump in the night to them is a Holy Spirit, whereas to a mature thinker it could be someone in the kitchen looking for a midnight snack. But if we really want to know the answer, we need to go investigate and not merely rely on what we believe or want to be true.